of evidence. The jury decides how much credit to give that evidence. And that's the difference. And you know, like I said, the newly discovered evidence thing is yeah. And this is the Sixth Circuit. Because in this case, I call it the whiskey bottle case because the lady got killed with a whiskey bottle. But in that case, Chambers, if I'm not mistaken, he argued to the judge in this guy's relief from judgment, I believe that, well, look, it is not newly discovered evidence because he wanted to introduce these photos at this evidentiary hearing. But he knew about these photographs before and during trial, so it's not newly discovered. The trial judge agreed with the prosecutor and denied the motion because the evidence, no matter how valuable the evidence is, they're saying if it's not newly discovered, get it out of here because you violated the criteria. And so this is what the Sixth Circuit said. In the alternative, the state argues that the photos cannot be used to establish actual innocence because they are not new evidence. Okay, then say, assuming for the sake of argument that the state trial court finding is correct, the state's argument is unpersuasive. The state confuses the standards set forth in MCR 6.508 versus the United States Supreme Court decision in Shelley versus Delo. And then they go up and, like I said, what you got to prove on newly discovered evidence and the difference between that and actual innocence. You know, newly discovered evidence, it just calls for a new trial. And that's what they're going up from there. Actual innocence would be a determination based on this evidence this man is actually innocent. And you'd have had this man in prison for all of these years and he's innocent. Newly discovered evidence just getting a new trial. And that's my big beef with the way they argue that. The feds got newly discovered evidence too. So if the federal system got newly discovered evidence, why would they have actual innocence? Also, like the court said, they are not the same thing. Michigan, and that judge up there, the one I said, the lady, her argument in another case was simply, look, Michigan don't have an actual innocence standard. So they've been using the wrong standard on guys in Michigan, making them go into newly discovered evidence. And the controlling case is People versus Crest. And he had such strong evidence until even the detective in this case, it was out of Battle Creek, he went to the other state to visit the guy, came back convinced that they convicted the wrong man. But the problem with Crest was that his lawyers raised his case on newly discovered evidence. And the court going to answer what you put before him. And they raised it on newly discovered evidence, went through the Michigan Supreme Court, and that's how you get the People versus Crest. And they denied him. He went to the federal court. The federal court explained to him, well, look, newly discovered evidence is not a federal constitutional claim. On a head, you could only bring federal constitutional claims in. Wow. Newly discovered evidence is not a constitutional claim. So therefore, you got other avenues to get out of prison, which they were saying your evidence is so strong, but because you came in here on the newly discovered evidence, go ask your governor to commute your sentence or pardon you. And that's how Crest got out. Crest didn't get out through the court, but people think that Crest got out through the court. Jennifer Graham Home commuted a sentence. That's the only way he got out because he went to the federal court arguing newly discovered evidence when he should have went in arguing actual innocence. Yeah. But you can't change your argument when you leave state court and go to feds. See? So he didn't argue actual innocence in state court. He argued newly discovered evidence. And this is where Sean got him over the barrel at because in state court, he gave them a chance to clean up their state law and make it compatible with federal law. Yeah. And they haven't done it. So that's the difference.
This is Sean's lawyer right here. Hey, man.
I told you.
Yeah.
Every
Say hey to everybody.
Oh, I'm sorry.
There's Diane.
Hey.
That's Grandma.
Hi,
How you doing?
hi, Edna. It's good to see you.
You too.
I told these guys. I said, you know, these hearings sometimes are very perfunctory, and the judges oftentimes tell you, like, we don't want to hear everything that you have to say. We've already read it. We know it's in your briefs.
Yeah.
You know, I'm telling you, I went on longer than they wanted me to go on,
Wow.
and you know. I tried to beg their patience as much as I could, but
Yeah.
I mean, I've done dozens and dozens of these arguments, and it was clear to me they just didn't, you know, they didn't want to hear much more.
Mm-hmm.
But I will say the only thing I can discern from the hearing that I thought was favorable was that Judge Kavanaugh basically asked the prosecutor, like, hey, okay, if this bullet doesn't match, I mean, isn't that
Exactly. Yeah, I caught that too.
Isn't that the question?
Yeah.
Here? And Tom Chambers basically tried to say, well, you know, he could be an aider and abetter.
Right.
He was all up in there, and there was these bullets. But you know, that wasn't the charge.
Exactly.
He didn't go to a jury on aiding and abetting a murder. He went to a jury on the charge that he was the sole shooter.
Exactly.
So that, you know, they don't get to like change that theory midway stream on an appeal.
Right.
Once evidence comes out that was suppressed from the defense to make it a different case. That's a different case.
Yeah, a whole nother case. And that the fact that he said that it's aided and abetting, that's a whole nother thing. Like, what are you talking about? Yeah.
That's not the theory they presented to the jury. And I have all that in my briefs. And
Right.
I have the prosecutor from the trial. I have him quoted in my briefs to make that point that the theory was that Searcy was the shooter. He walked up to the car and shot
Exactly.
Seegers. So I did that because I already knew that's where the prosecution was going with this new amorphous, you know, theory that all of a sudden, well, he was there. There were the gun has bullets that were there. He even said they were on the Corvette.
He said they were on the car. Yeah.
False.
Yeah.
There were no 45s on or in the Corvette, which is why I told the judges they needed to look at that exhibit from the forensic report, because it tells you the 45s were across the street or in other parts away from the car.
Right.
That's really important because it shows you that the only gun that was used to actually, you know, hit the victim was the 40. And the 40 is what we didn't know because they had suppressed that type of bullet from us at the time of the trial. So we didn't know what kind of bullet. You know, that's why I wanted to tell the judges when Tom Chambers was like, well, they knew about this. That's not true.
Yeah.
We didn't know until we opened this envelope in the courtroom and the judge took it in his possession with the deputies and had the envelope reopened. Nobody knew what that bullet was.
Right.
That's just BS. That's a lie.
Yeah.
That's a lie. They're trying to cover their tracks now, you know, 15 years after the fact, now that they've been caught. They're trying to cover their tracks with some BS, alternative theories, and alternative arguments about how they think it could still be a murder case. Well, then go charge it as a murder case, because I'll defend that case and I'll win.
Yeah.
Go charge that case that he was an aider and abetter when you have a confessor whose confession matches the forensic evidence that they withheld.
Right.
Go charge that case if that's what you
Man,
think.
this is crazy, man. This is insane.
And didn't Vincent's mother say that Sean was not involved in the shooting when that he didn't know Sean or anybody associated with him?
That's right. Vincent's mother said he had an accomplice there by the name of Jeffrey Daniels, but he didn't know Searcy at all. You know, he was very detailed about, you know, who did what his role was, what Jeffrey Daniels' role was. I mean, Smothers was very detailed in describing where they, you know, parked, how they walked to the scene where the Corvette was when they saw the Corvette. Smothers even detailed how he walked up on the left side. He started shooting from the back going forward, which matches the bullet trajectory exactly from the medical autopsy. The medical examiner told us exactly which way these bullets struck the victim and how they went in and came out of them. And what the medical examiner found is entirely consistent with what Smothers described as how he approached the car and how he shot the victim.
Yeah.
How would you know that if you're not the killer?
Yeah, 100%. It's crazy.
I'm disappointed now because I'm always disappointed about arguments. It doesn't mean that we win or we lose.
Yeah.
I don't want to make any judgment call. I'm just disappointed that my client is serving a life sentence and they're worried about if they're going to have to listen to the lawyers for a few minutes too long.
Right.
That's what they're worried about.
And this could become a death sentence because he's had COVID twice.
Twice. Yeah. I mean, I don't know what you thought.
Now, I mean, I thought I did pick up on him trying to like move you along a little bit. Was it Judge Kavanaugh?
He was the presiding judge.
Yeah, I did kind of pick up on that, but when he did say, well, isn't that a whole nother kind of charge, or does that make a difference? That when he brought that point up, I was like, okay, then that clearly shows that, you know, what he was charged with isn't.
Right.
That doesn't make sense. That should
Right.
nowhere have been his charge, even if the prosecution argument is true, right? He shouldn't have been charged with what they charged him with, right? So that's a whole other case. That's not what you guys charged him with.
Right.
If that's your argument.
Right, and the question right now is just whether the jury could reach a different result based on the charge.
Right.
that was brought, not whether it could be upheld for some alternative reasons.
Right.
You know, or like whether it could be upheld on an alternative theory. The only question is whether the jury could reach a different result on the charge that, you know, that Searcy was the killer.
Yeah.
It's really total BS. I would be surprised if the court were to bite on that. That's not, you know, that's entirely consistent with the legal standard that they should be looking at right now in terms of weighing the newly discovered evidence. You know, and the reason I wanted to focus so much on that bullet was because, you know, I get it. People could be suspicious of confessions from other inmates, someone who might be locked up. They say, well, you know, this guy will confess to anything, you know, big deal.
Right.
But that's why I told him, like, and I don't know if I don't remember if I said that Thursday, but I told him, like, the bullet doesn't lie.
Right.
That's the real evidence.
Yeah. Tossing out Vincent Smothers, his testimony, the forensics still say what it is.
It doesn't match the gun.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm disappointed because I just wish they would have allowed us, you know, the opportunity to
And B,
expand
can you
on
grab? I ordered
these
some food. They got it.
without, without being so impatient and sort of perfunctory in the process.
Yeah.
But you know, I don't want to suggest that means I'm worried like I lose. I don't know. I've been doing this a long time. I've argued dozens and dozens and dozens of appeals at the state and federal courts.
Mm-hmm.
I have gotten past like the idea of trying to read tea leaves and stuff. I don't want to try to read into every little thing. You just don't know.
Yeah.
You don't know. You know, but the only thing I can judge this on basically is that the question Kavanaugh asked would be favorable to us.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
You know, and I also will tell you, you know, I was a law clerk for several federal judges when I first graduated from law school. I clerked for several federal judges, and I was involved in hundreds of cases and decisions. And I will tell you that 90 or 95% of the time, the judges have they have their minds made up before oral arguments. Oral arguments rarely, if ever, change the outcome of an appeal.
Yeah.
Rarely. I mean,
Yeah.
they've had their law clerks who are lawyers working on this case for months, reading it, writing the memos. They already probably have their impressions and their ideas in their head. The question now is the three of them come together. So each of them individually, of those three judges, probably already have strong opinions about the case.
Yeah.
Now that the three of them will come together, they'll have to vote, you know, and come to a decision. Of course, we need at least two of the judges to carry the day on an opinion. I will also say this, Judge Cameron, who was on the panel, I've had a few cases with him, and he's a very conservative guy, and he's a very difficult guy to win cases with, especially criminal cases.
Mm-hmm.
And in many cases I've had in the past with him, he really goes at me like with a lot of questions and things, and he didn't do that at all today. He didn't say a word.
Yeah.
So it could be that he's either convinced based on what he's already read. I mean, he certainly didn't ask me or the prosecutor any questions. And Judge Cameron is usually, Judge Boonstrom is usually So,
Yeah.
but like I said, you don't want to like try to read tea leaves and stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I think the information that was presented was very sound and precise, and it poked all the holes at the prosecution's theories. And I don't think that the prosecution argument was strong, especially when he went into the point of like, well, he's aiding and abetting and all, like that. Like, what are you talking about? That's ridiculous, man.
No, it's true, and his goal was, the prosecutor's goal was, other than to try to explain that the bullet doesn't match by talking about aiding and abetting, was just to try to say Searcy's a bad guy and
Exactly.
Smothers is a liar. But all right, but like you said, even if you want to say, and that's why I put so much emphasis on the forensics and the bullets. Even if you want to say you don't believe Smothers, what are you going to say about the bullet?
Yeah.
Can't get around it. It's impossible.
Yeah.
And it's worth noting that Sean was the one himself who discovered that forensic evidence when he was going through all the documents. His grandmother here had requested under FOIA the homicide file.
You're right. That's because that's how they got it, was the FOIA, the Freedom of Information Act request.
Mhm.
I mean, I'm aware of that. That's how they actually got that information that even led us to the fact that there was a conflict in that envelope. Because you wouldn't have known that. That's why I told the judges. I said, I told them, hey, no, Sean didn't know this, and his wife didn't know it, because if you have this envelope that's mismatched, they didn't open it. Nobody opened it before to actually retest it, what was in there.
Yeah.
And that's what led us. I mean, we didn't know this, and that's why I wanted the judges to understand. We started this case with the idea that Vincent Smothers was confessing to this murder, and then what we come out with is, now we have a bullet that never before had been discovered that came from the victim, and that was withheld, and it doesn't match the gun. I mean, you can put Smothers aside. I'll take the bullet any day over Smothers' confession. But you're right. That is how we found out. I mean, that is how they found out was Searcy and Edna. I know Edna's the one that made those requests for those records, got those FOIA records from the city, which is what unearthed this particular report that showed the conflict. It wasn't until then that anyone had any reason to suspect there was something amiss in the envelope.
And they used that. They used that gun in trial to say this is the murder weapon. This is the murder. It was in his house. It is not even. Yeah.
It's not.
Wow, man. Yeah, that's heavy.
I'm all keyed up now, and I'm disappointed because lawyers are always disappointed because we always want something to go better than it went. It doesn't matter what happens. I mean, they're not going to tell you right there on the Zoom like, oh, you win. They're not going to tell you. They never do. They always take the cases under advisement. It's not like they ever tell you what they're going to do right there. But I'm just disappointed that they were so short about it and impatient with wanting to hear it. But I will say, they have thousands of pages of briefs and exhibits. This has been extensively briefed. So, in a way, they have everything they need.
What do you think about the woman judge?
Servito.
Servito, I'm sorry.
Judge Servito comes from Macomb County. She was a Macomb County Circuit Court judge, and she comes from a family of judges. And before she was put on the Michigan Court of Appeals, she's generally pretty progressive in her positions and her judicial opinions. She's generally more progressive. So, generally speaking, I would say Judges Servito and Kavanaugh would be more favorable to our side and our position than Judge Boonstra.
Judge Cameron.
She didn't say anything, and to be honest, I had a hard time watching her because her Zoom was sort of almost at her half face up. It was like Ziggy.
Yeah, it was like neck up.
I had trouble. I couldn't watch her. I don't know if you guys saw any expressions. I know that she sort of popped a few eyes when Mr. Chambers started saying motherfucker, she was shocked he said that or something. But hey, cases are cases, facts are facts. There's nothing pretty and nice about any of the stuff we're talking about. You're your sensibilities can't be offended by, by
Yeah.
something like that. But she did pop a couple eyes on that when he said that. So other than that, I don't know that I really noticed much in terms of her expressions or reactions.
So like, what's the process like now? Like,
So
what happens next?
Kavanaugh said, like, we'll have an opinion out. The Court of Appeals is generally pretty quick. I mean, I've gotten opinions as fast as a week, and I've gotten opinions in instances where it's taken me 3, 4, or 5 months. I have a feeling we're going to get an opinion fairly quickly on this one, especially because Kavanaugh said at the end, like, we'll have an opinion out in a couple weeks. I think they're decided. I mean, that's kind of my thought. I think that they had already decided. I don't think the oral argument was really going to make any difference today anyway, to be quite honest with you. And maybe that might be all the more reason why they were even less receptive to want to hear us talk and argue even longer about it. But
I do like the fact that he made the statement of, well, if that's the case, wouldn't that affect the argument? He asked the prosecutor that. Then he went into the, aiding and abetting, like, okay, well then that's a whole nother thing. And the fact that he actually said that.
Yeah, I agree. That was the single most important thing that was said or conveyed or
The biggest
reaction
positive
by the judge
out of it all.
positive
Yeah.
that came from the court. Now, I don't want to ride that thing to a win, but like that was the only thing that we could say, and it was definitely more favorable to us than them.
Yeah.
So I don't know. We'll have to see what happens.
Yeah, man.
Look, I'm already out of my suit.
Yeah, I see you. You came out your suit jacket and everything, man.
The Zoom is off. The suit's off. Like, the minute the Zoom is off, the suit's off.
Yeah. No, man, good stuff though, man. I mean, I think you did great as best you could given the circumstances and the time frame, man. So you just, pray for the best at this point, man. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Can I see Edna real quick?
Yes. Here you go.
Edna.
Hey.
Hi, Ed.
Hi,
Edna.
Jesse.
How have you been?
I've been doing okay.
Good. Listen, I feel really good about this path that we're on. I don't know what's going to happen today, but I've told Sean this, and I'll tell you this. I feel eventually we're going to win this. Eventually, all right. We just have to be patient. We need to keep the faith, and we just need to be positive about where it's going. And the fact that the Supreme Court sent this back to the Court of Appeals, obviously that's a great sign for us. And if for some reason this doesn't come out our way with the Court of Appeals, we're going back to the Supreme Court. So we just have to be patient and just keep our faith that eventually we're going to get the right outcome. And I really believe we are going to get it. We are going to get the right outcome one day.
I hope
Right.
so.
Yeah, in the meantime, you better stay warm and you better stay safe.
Okay, I will.
All right. All right,
Okay.
give Sean my best. I'm sure I'll talk to him. You can let him know you saw it for yourself what happened, and we'll see what happens next.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Yep, you're welcome, Edna.
All right.
Yeah, man. Well, that was heavy. That was heavy.
Yep.
Watch, man. Yeah, that was heavy watch.
I'm gonna just feel good about it. That's all I'm gonna do. It's just.
Yeah, man. That's all we can do at this point.
I mean, don't forget, we were almost done. We were almost done in the process till the Michigan Supreme Court stepped in and sent it back and told the Court of Appeals to review it.
Yeah.
So, we still have some. If we had 9 lives, we still have some left.
Yeah. Good
All
stuff, man. All right, yeah. Well, I'll be in touch, man. Like I said, we definitely want to sit down at some point and get a sit down interview with you. So we'll figure that out. All right.
All right, sounds good. You guys have a good day. Be
All right.
safe.
You too, man.
Safe.
Yeah.
All right. Take care.
Whoa. Oh man.
And it's funny how the judge said he don't believe that guy Smothers. But Smothers is the same one in the Devontae Stafford case
Yeah.
to cause him to get out, and he showed them where the guns that was used.
Yeah.
But he also told them, look, I be hitting people for the Detroit Police Department. You don't believe me?
Yeah.
I killed a police officer's wife at the CVS on the east side.
Yeah.
You don't believe me? then why was the police officer, why did he commit suicide and hang himself on a tree out in Sterling Heights?
I remember that.
You know?
Yeah.
But you don't believe Smothers. You know? But he'd have showed you, well, I took this here for this police officer to kill his wife, and I gave you evidence that I did the Devontae Stafford murder. So how come you don't believe me here?
When I say this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But see, Kenny ain't no choir boy. You know, Timothy Kenny, we just took him all the way back to 1971, where he was the prosecutor in a case. Well, at the time, he wasn't involved in this, but it was a Detroit police officer named James Harris. He kicked him stressed. They kicked in the door on Rochester apartment, and they go in. It just so happened it's about 5 off-duty Wayne County Sheriff deputies, and they're playing poker. They go in and they shoot and kill one Wayne County Sheriff deputy and wounded another, and then set up there beating them. Now, Harris and a couple more officers, they are tried in Wayne County Circuit Court for murder and attempt murder. Now, these police officers on trial for killing other police.
Another police officer.
They get found not guilty.
Wow.
In 1976, a friend of mine named Ricky Rimmer, he go to trial for murder. He said, that officer right there, Harris, because I'm the leader of a gang on the east side called the Chains. Back in the day, it was the Chains and the Bishops. And he said, because I wouldn't have the Chains sell drugs for him, he gave me this murder case. Ricky, he go to trial in 76 and get convicted. I don't know why they believe him.
Who was the prosecutor at that trial?
In Ricky's case, the prosecutor was Timmy Kenny,
Wow.
who's Sean Judge now.
Who's Sean Judge now?
In 76, Timothy Kenny had a duty to tell Rimmer that police officer, he had been arrested for murder. See, that's in Brady versus Maryland. You supposed to inform
That was
us.
never mentioned.
They never told him about that. So Rick get convicted. And he's still in prison, 40-something years.
Wow.
In the late 90s, late 80s, early 90s. And we got it on our phone and it's in the paper. Harris, along with Coleman Young's brother-in-law,
Willie Volson.
Willie Wilson, video. They on a yacht who they think is an international drug dealer. In Miami. Yeah, any drugs that you bring into Detroit airports, we will protect it. I got a squad of 13 officers, and they was protecting it. However, that police officer, that drug dealer that ran the yacht, he was undercover FBI agent.
Wow.
Coleman Young's brother-in-law get 20 years. Harris get 30 years in prison and the other officers for protecting drug shit. Rimmer's still sitting in prison because he told them back in 76, this man told me if I don't sell drugs, have my gang said, he gonna do it.
Yeah.
And that's what he did.
And so he's still sitting in prison.
He's still
under
sitting
that
in
false
prison.
imprisonment.
And Timothy
Due to
Kenny was the prosecutor. And right to this day, it's a guy saying that when Rimmer went to jail, he was next in line. And Harris came to him. And he started selling drugs for
He
him.
started selling drugs for him.
Yeah, and he did an affidavit to that effect. And then the killing part about it, that 71 thing, when they went in there and killed that Wayne County Sheriff deputy and wounded the other one. There's a unique thing in the city of Detroit. Detroit is the only police department that physically raided its own precinct. Detroit police went in to the 10th precinct on Livernois and Elmhurst and raided their own precinct. That's when they got that big drug dealer, Milton Happy Battles, Rudy Davis, a white police officer. There was about 3 police officers that got convicted on that 10th precinct scandal. They raided their own precinct.
Wow.
But what they didn't, she found out later on, when that Wayne County Sheriff got killed and they went in there. It is believed now, I'm convinced, that they went in there to kill a Pacific Wayne County Sheriff deputy. He just happened not to be there at that poker game.
Yeah.
He was an undercover sheriff deputy for the FBI investigating Detroit corruption and drugs.
Yeah.
And that's who they kicked in that door to go in there and kill. But see, the average citizens, they hear this information. You don't believe it.
Yeah.
You can't believe it. Are you telling me that my police department is corrupt like that? Yes. Because right now, you got all of these officers that's resigning, being fired. They just had about 13 about a month ago because filing false reports, lying on the witness stands, and everything else.
Wow.
Detroit is a corrupt police department. See, and that's what happened. That's what, you know, the ring of snitches. Look at that. I mean, this lady, she said she's proud, Kim Worthy, that within the last 2 years, her integrity unit has overturned 23 convictions because the guys was wrongly convicted.
Right.
That's not nothing to be proud of. You saying that you'd have locked up, you'd have
All
found
of
in
it,
2
exactly.
years,
Yeah.
you'd have locked up 20-some guys, and it did 20, 30, 40 years. And now you're saying,
Proud to
hey,
have
we
those.
found they innocent.
And Kim Worthy was an assistant prosecutor since 1984, when a lot of those men went to prison. So she was aware. She was aware of the ring of snitches, all of that.
That's how, and they keep that secret.
Yeah.
Up on the 9th floor, guys get arrested. Rice, who's the lieutenant, and he'd have been convicted for the homicide section. What they'll do, they'll put me in the cell with you. Say you charged for murder, they'll put me in the bullpen up there with you. And they'll tell me about the case. And I'll go in and try to, you know, even though you don't tell me nothing, I come back out and tell Rice them that you told me you shot the person and everything else. Because, see, they'd already gave me the facts.
Gave you the information.
And I come in the courtroom and I testify against you. All the time I'm lying because the police did this.
Yeah.
Haven't nothing been done to any police officer that they've been pumped at. Lucino Hamilton, we went up to Macomb County and he just got released about 2 months ago because of the ring of snitches. They put people in that cell and play like they told them, then have them come over to court and testify and get these guys convicted.
Yeah.
And that's what goes on.
And in Sean's case, there was a snitch there too, Witcher. I forgot his first name, but he was the one. They,
Michael, or is it Michael? Or?
well, yeah, I can't remember right now, but